Welcome to CareHero podcast, where our mission is to educate, motivate, and inspire nurses and other healthcare professionals. In each episode, we explore how our guests successfully advance their careers and improve the lives of their patients and residents. We share practical tips and success stories to illustrate how you, our care heroes, can grow in your own personal and professional lives.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to CareHero Podcast, the show that aims to help you get ahead in your healthcare career. I'm your host, Martin Hoy.
And I'm Gerard Hernandez. Let me tell you, we've got another terrific guest on today's CareHero Podcast episode.
That's right. We have Kimberly Bagley, a critical care nurse practitioner from Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yes, Martin, she's an advanced practice provider with a passion for critical care medicine, oncology, and end-of-life and palliative care.
And Kim has a great story and awesome tips to share, including the importance of moving forward and trying new things, the significance of getting to know yourself, your best qualities, and your strengths and weaknesses, to not be afraid of facing challenges, to always seek opportunities to further your education, and also the importance of leading by example and remembering to always be mindful of how you carry yourself.
Sounds awesome, Martin. Let's do this. Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, likewise. All right, so let's get into this. So we always start off the show with this question. All of our care heroes, including yourself, are superheroes. But if you had to choose one superpower, what would that be and why?
The superpower I have always wanted and I would absolutely choose is the superpower to heal. That is one that I absolutely could use in everyday life, even outside of work. So that would be my superpower.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely not selfish superpower at all.
That's right. You know, healing would be very, very important for you as you're an experienced advanced practice provider with over a decade of experience in healthcare. Kim, could you tell us a little bit about your life story, your background, and how you got into healthcare?
Absolutely. I can honestly say that nursing was not my first or second or even third career. I am not one of those people who knew what they wanted to do growing up, who knew what they were good at. There are people that are like that, and I've always been very envious, but I came about to nursing through this very long life journey, right? So after high school, I enlisted in the military and I served in the Army Reserves. I went through college with that. And then at the same time, and then I moved into different, office jobs. I worked as a desktop publisher, graphic designer. And then I actually went to school for massage therapy, which is something that I thoroughly enjoy and I loved. And it was something that resonated with me. And in the process of working as a massage therapist, I actually had a regular client who unfortunately had been misdiagnosed. And that entire experience, after everything she went with when she finally got the proper diagnosis and treatment, from the moment she could just walk from the front door, to the car, her husband brought her in to see me every week because it made her feel better. And that whole experience had such a profound impact on me that I really felt strongly that people in healthcare need good advocates, really strong advocates. And nursing advocacy is a core of nursing. And so that led me to nursing. And so at the same time that I worked as a massage therapist, I put myself through nursing school. And then I just progressed from there in terms of working in critical care and continuing my education.
Wow, that is so inspiring. You have had so many careers, Kim.
Absolutely. I feel very comfortable with the soft skills that we utilize at work with, communication and documentation and scholarship and publication in addition to the patient care side. And so I think it's been very helpful and it actually enables me to work with nurses and other staff members to help with their professional growth as they're working on advancing their careers. And so I find myself doing a lot of mentoring and utilizing all these soft as well as the hard skills that we learn in the field.
So speaking of your work, so currently you're a critical care nurse practitioner at Duke Raleigh Hospital's ICU in Raleigh, North Carolina. Could you tell us a bit more about your role and what you do?
Absolutely. So the ICU, it happens to be a combined medical surgical intensive care unit. And so it's a mixed population. And our team consists of, we've got the intensivist, we have our advanced practice providers, and then we of course have our nursing staff, our respiratory therapy staff, we work with pharmacy, and then we have the other disciplines that we work with as well. But a typical shift, we cover 24/7. So we have practitioners who work during the day and practitioners who work at night. I'm someone who works full-time nights. And so, I'll go in and, we start off with handoff, right? So we get to have conversations about all the patients on the unit and find out what's going on with them, what needs to happen, what still we're working towards and taking care of them. And we discuss any other patients that are expected to come, whether they're post-op patients or patients who have been seen in the ED that need to come, or patients on the floor that need to come. But then we also will, kind of wrap things up from that point. And then our team has rounds and we have multidisciplinary rounds. So we'll go from room to room to room on the unit and see every single patient and go through everything for that patient. And when we meet, we gather, right? So it's the intensivist, it's the advanced practice provider, it's the nurse. We have respiratory therapy there, we have pharmacy there, and we review everything for that patient, figure out the plan, make any changes that we need to do. And then that kind of sets us up for the shift. So everyone's on the same page. Everyone knows what the status is for the patient, why they're there, what's going on, what the goals are. And then we can move on to the rest of the work for that shift, right? So that involves, as things come up and arise, then we have to manage that. So patient management for those patients. As we get consults for patients in the ED or the floor, we'll see those patients. As we have medical emergencies take place in the hospital, it's not the same for every facility, but for us, we manage those medical emergencies, right? So if there's a code inside the ICU, I'll run it. If there's a code outside the ICU, I'll run it. So we do a lot in our role in our facility. And then it's really nice because we're very heavily team-based. So if there's a lot going on at any given time, there could be multiple things going on that need to be addressed. Then we work with the intensivist and we divide and conquer. And that's really important because then we can provide that timely patient care that we need to more efficiently and effectively.
Wow. And that really speaks, like just laying that out really speaks to what you were talking about before, your soft skills, because clearly working with this interdisciplinary team, communication, right, is really so important throughout your everyday.
It really is, because everyone has their perspective that they bring, right? Not just their education and training, but their experiences. We have team members who have worked in the field for 30 plus years, right? So that is a huge boon for us. I mean, that is a gift that everyone brings that experience in their training, and you have to be able to communicate effectively, right? Because there's going to be times when people with those different perspectives have different opinions, right? So the communication really becomes important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Kim, you have a particular expertise in end of life and palliative care. And could you describe a little bit about that? And I think you've written a little bit about the importance of having goals of care conversations. And could you maybe kind of bring that into this as well?
Absolutely. So when I started out as a critical care nurse, I worked in the cardiothoracic intensive care unit at Duke University Hospital. And I quickly, with that patient population, it was, high acuity and high tech. And the patients, extremely sick, but having a lot of medical devices in play there and taking care of them. And I quickly learned that not everyone was comfortable with, end of life. Not everyone was comfortable with palliative care. Not everyone was comfortable having code status discussions. And it really became important in my personal practice as a nurse because I was encountering both patients and family members who had no understanding of the differences with code status and who had no understanding of palliative care and what was involved with that. And we worked closely with bringing in the palliative care team who are the specialists with that, but there's so much as a nurse that you can do in educating your patients and family members outside of bringing in the specialized team. And so that started this pathway for me. And I quickly discovered that I wasn't the only one who was seeing that and encountering that. There were respiratory therapists on the unit who felt the same way, as well as nurses. And so everyone came together to work on our end-of-life training and education. And then from there, when I moved out of that unit, that passion just grew and continued. So before I started working as a critical care nurse practitioner, my first nurse practitioner position was actually with hospital medicine oncology service. And so I ended up really honing my skills when it came to goals of care conversations and advanced care planning, and having those conversations with patients who were really sick within the hospital setting at that time. And so I have a particular love and interest in advanced care planning. So I have written down goals of care conversations and the importance of them. And I think it's important that it's not a top-down model, because that bedside nurse, that respiratory therapist at the bedside interacting with family members, the entire team is in a position to help educate patients and families, to help provide support for patients and families. And we do so individually when we're in the room at that moment, and we do so as a team when we're in that room, encountering situations for patients. So it is something that I feel strongly is a large part of my personal practice and is important for all practitioners working in healthcare.
Right. Hey, healthcare is a team sport, and it's especially important in the end of life situation. And you have to bring in people from all sorts of different specialties and involve conversations that are very difficult. So kudos to you for making this an important part of your practice.
I think it's important for our patients, but I also think it's important for our staff, because when we are taking care of someone, obviously we feel for them, and this is someone's loved one, and we recognize that, it's not my mom, but it is someone's mom. It's not my son, but it is someone's son. And so, we end up supporting patients and family members, but also each other as we're taking care of people.
Kim, for our care heroes, let's say the newly minted registered nurse, going early in their career, thinking about where they want to specialize. What can you tell them? What do you love about critical care and being a critical care nurse, and why that might be a good option for them? And of course, now being a critical care nurse practitioner.
So I do love critical care, and I loved being a critical care nurse, but it worked out really well for me, right? I'm type A, according to some people, and OCD according to others. And from my personality traits, I'm very detail oriented. So critical care nursing was something that really played to those strengths, right? So for anyone who is thinking about critical care, those are things I would question: is yourself, what qualities you have. Are you easygoing? Are you laid back? Do you tend to skip details? Do you tend to really hone in on details? And do you delve into learning new things on your own when questions arise, or do you depend on other people giving you information? Do you follow up on stuff? Do you ask questions? I think all of that is really important in the field of critical care nursing, because all of that plays a role with your patients. You are monitoring everything, and part of that monitoring is you're noticing trends. So you have to pay attention to it, and then you have to question, what is this trend telling me? Right. So if I see a trend of someone's heart rate just gradually increasing over time to where they're now really tachycardic, do I need to go back and look at the fluid status? Maybe we diurese them too much. Maybe they're dry. Maybe they have a fever. But you start asking questions and using and really shaping your critical care skills. And I think that that's really enjoyable for myself. But in that field, critical thinking is one of those things that you can really hone in on. So it is something that kind of separates critical care nurses from other areas of nursing.
And
Absolutely.
And your ability to take on these different challenges is obviously because you're prepared, right? So how do you continue to learn to stay on top of things and within your role?
So the preparation that you receive from your education and training is really important, right? But that's your foundation. There's still so much left to learn, because no one knows everything. and no one knows what they don't know, right? So you have to still work on that. So I do a lot of things that help me strengthen and shore up my skills, and I do that at the same time that I help other nurses with theirs, right? So I actually do quite a bit of education on critical care topics for the nurses in the unit. I also do skills education for the nurses on the unit. And I seek to grow in my own knowledge, right? So, just for example, one of the things that Duke University School of Nursing, in conjunction with School of Medicine and physical therapy and everything, has currently offered is, the ability to go through training to become a simulation champion. So I love using simulations when I do teaching. I think it's provides a safe environment for all the learners, right? For us, for the nurses, for every staff member. And so this is something that I decided, okay, I'm going to make the 5-week commitment. I'm going to do this. And at the end of this, I'm going to be stronger in my skills with simulation. So I seek out those opportunities and I take advantage of them. When you are working as a nurse, sometimes you have to seek out the opportunity. And other times, the facility that you're working at gives you these opportunities, and it's up to you to decide, okay, am I going to make the time commitment? Am I going to pursue this? And I think it's well worth it. It's well worth it to take advantage of any opportunity that you're given that can help you learn and grow, because it makes you a stronger nurse, makes you a stronger practitioner, and makes you a stronger team member.
As if your professional career that we just discussed here wasn't already enough to be so impressive, but you were also a specialist for the U.S. Army Reserve for 8 years, specializing in telecommunications and military intelligence. So, of course, we want to thank you for your service and also congratulate you there as well for receiving the Army Achievement Medal. So could you tell our Care Heroes a bit about that experience and what it was for you?
Absolutely. So I enlisted after high school. And I actually had pondered going Army full time versus the reserves, but I had been accepted to my top choice college, early decision. And I felt strongly that for me, I owed it to my family to go ahead and get my college degree. So I made a decision to go into the reserves. And it was just a life changing experience, actually, for me. My understanding and respect for military personnel is just huge, because that experience was not easy to go through in terms of the physical rigors, but also the mental rigors and what you go through. The U.S. Army Achievement Award that I received was actually in recognition of kind of a personal self-sacrifice that I had made. And so it was interesting at the time. I was kind of surprised because it was a decision that I made that we needed nighttime coverage, and we were in a really hot, humid setting. It was actually miserable for people, and I went ahead and just stepped up and did what no one really was looking forward to doing. And so I ended up receiving the award, and it surprised me, because at the end of the day, when you are military personnel, there's so much sacrifice that you make, right? So it surprised me, and I was very proud of it at the end of the day, because I was like, oh, someone actually noticed that and found meaning in that, which was, for me, was something that surprised me, but was very gratifying.
I mean, it's also very inspiring for us to hear about. So thank you for sharing that. And now, of course, our Care Heroes can listen to this story and really be inspired by taking how the knowledge you gained from that experience. Also, you leveraged it all the way up to your nursing career, to being your nurse practitioner today. So speaking to potentially new grads or similar, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
There's 2 key pieces of advice I received early on. And so the first one is, if you know that you're weak in something, come up with a plan to get stronger, right? So a common thing that new graduate nurses are just terrified of and scared of is placing peripheral IVs, for example. So if you have a fear there, or you know that that's something you're weak in because you need more experience, then identify a mentor, someone you can work with who can give you their tips, and just work on it and keep working on it, because one day it won't be your weakness anymore. It'll be your strength, and you'll be that mentor helping other nurses in that skill. The second piece of key information I received was that everyone is always watching you and what you do, right? So the patient, the family, the other staff that you're working with, the providers, everyone. So whatever reputation you develop, whether it's positive or negative, you likely have earned, right? So keep that in mind, because when everyone is watching you, that's an opportunity at every moment for you to shine, for you to really show off your knowledge, your skills, your caring, your dedication, the fact that you're attentive, the fact that you respond quickly, that you ask questions, that you advocate for your patients, that you provide support for them and their family members. So that's something that I think is really important to keep in mind as you move through your career, because when you keep that in mind, it helps you eventually become a great role model for other nurses when they come in, right? Because you can help pull them aside and be like, just so you know, like the families in that room seeing and hearing what you're saying, the patient, like everyone. So the fact that you are positive, the fact that you explain things well, the fact that you talk to your patient before you touch them and do anything, like all of these things are meaningful to them, and all of it gets observed, whether you realize it or not.
That was terrific advice. So, make a plan if you're weak at something, and then taking these, even though someone's watching you all the time, that's an opportunity. That's not necessarily a bad thing. So those are great pieces of advice. Kimberly, on a broader sense, if you could do anything to improve healthcare in America, what would you do?
I think it's going to be important for nurses to help shape health policy. I think nurses are in a really unique position. We see the challenges the challenges in health that patients experience as they get older, right? People are living longer. We're managing comorbidities, a lot more comorbidities and over longer time. Nurses really see the impact of, personal lifestyle choices and decisions that people make that can be negative to their health. Nurses really see the impact on children as they're growing up, right? Because you've got that school nurse there. So I feel like nurses really are in a position to speak up and help shape health policy across the nation. And I think there's a trend towards doing that. And I'm hopeful that that trend just grows and continues, because I think of all the professions, and there's so many, there's so many, I do feel that nursing is definitely in a unique position to help guide health policy to improve healthcare for people across the nation, because we touch so many aspects of life, right? School, pediatrics, public health policy, outpatient, specialty, inpatient. Like there's so many aspects that you'll see nurses and interacting with people and what we see. So I think that across the nation, if we can see a continued trend towards nursing influencing health policy and helping to shape it, it's going to help improve healthcare across the nation.
Yeah, certainly nurses just need to be on the lookout for their opinions are being valued, and look for ways to contribute. And I think you do know that the new administration is bringing more people with nursing backgrounds into the fold to provide some guidance on national policy. So that you're right, the trend is heading that direction, and nurses should be ready to contribute as much as they can.
Absolutely. I mean, we already have some legislators with a nursing background. So, I'd like to see it grow, because that perspective and being able to provide that perspective is really going to be helpful.
Kim, how are you managing your personal and professional life while staying mentally and physically healthy during this global pandemic?
So there's a lot of things that I do, right? Because your health, you can't, as a caretaker, you can't really care for others if you don't take care of yourself. So there's a lot of things that I do, and it kind of crosses different categories. So personally, I'm a writer. I love to write, but I write for myself. So there's no pressure there. So I write. It's very cathartic. It helps me process emotions and experiences. I also paint for fun, which is a nice visual way for me to kind of express different emotions and, again, to help process experiences. it's also a fun means for interacting with friends who also paint and being able to have that socialization and talking and catching up. There are other things that I do professionally. One of the things that I do regularly, I'm very active, right? So I do projects. I submit to, national nursing conferences. I submit poster abstracts. I submit for publication. All of those things are things that I do not because I really feel like I need to stay busy, but because it helps me accomplish something, right? So if I do a project, then that's something I can check off. If I submit for a poster abstract, I can check that off. So all of those little things are successes that build up over time. And so it helps me stay positive and feel meaningful in what I'm doing. And then when those things are successful, publication or poster abstracts or presenting at nursing conferences, et cetera, then that's another checkbox that I can check. And I'm like, okay, great, that's a success. So I think it's not necessarily the big things, it's the little things that you work on over time that are really beneficial to staying mentally healthy, right? And staying positive about things.
Mm-hmm.
There are other things I do outside of healthcare. I'm a member of a women's organization called PEO that helps promote and finance educational opportunities for women at all age, like all across the age span. And that's really, really been helpful for me because I am able to work with these amazing women with this shared vision outside of healthcare and work toward things that that I feel like make a difference and are meaningful to me. So volunteer work and staying active in that respect is something that I find very helpful.
Is there any other specific story or knowledge you'd like to share with the CareHero community today?
I think if anything, I'd like to first say thank you to everyone who works in healthcare, but also has an interest in healthcare and supports people who work in healthcare. I think it's I think nursing is an amazing field because there's so much diversity. So even if you end up going into one particular area, if it's not for you, you have the opportunity to go into different areas, whether it's different specialties or administration or education. There's such diversity and variety. And I think that that's really helpful. I've, worked with a lot of individuals who go in thinking that they're, absolutely 100% in love with a certain area just to find out that they're not. And or they get burnt out and they're stressed out about it. And the good news is you don't have to stay. I mean, you can actually pursue other areas within the field that make you happy. And I think that's really important. I think this is a field that I can think of no other field that gives this kind of variety, honestly. So I think that that's a real blessing.
And Kim, say you get to travel to the future. What does the future of nursing look like as an advanced practice provider?
I'd like to see the future of nursing as an advanced practice provider, put everyone across the states within the United States to where they are practicing at their full practice authority and having that standardized nationally versus each state having their own requirements and differences in practice.
Great. I mean, hopefully with this new administration, you see some more of that standardization across the board.
I hope so. I think it's going to be very beneficial. I think there's this real opportunity there with advanced practice nurses and nurses to help address a lot of the issues that we have in healthcare, from your crazy high cost associated with healthcare to improving how like public health, how healthy the public is in general. And nursing is in this position to really be able to make a strong impact. So I think that if, throughout throughout the decades, you've seen nurses just continue to step up and step up and step up. And I think that's just going to continue. And then as a result of that, I think the nation as a whole will end up being a healthier nation and we'll be able to address some of these really big problems that we face.
Kim, listening to your amazing background and your practical knowledge and advice for our care heroes has just been amazing. Do you have any final thoughts or advice for our care heroes?
identifying what you're passionate in and continuing to pursue that. So just like what you guys are doing by offering the podcast with Care Heroes and getting more information and experiences out there for other people, seeking those opportunities to learn more and understand others in the field and who you could be working with and what you could be exploring or what you could be doing or how you could be contributing is very, very powerful. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it, and the bigger, the greatest difference you'll end up making.
That was such a great episode with Kim Martin. She clearly has such a passion for healthcare and continually works on becoming a better practitioner every single day.
Yeah, and it's always great to hear Care Heroes take such immense pride in care in what they do. Hey, and now it's time for the handover.
Okay, Care Heroes, here are our top takeaways from this episode. Keep moving forward and try new things. It's okay if you don't have it all figured out. You will find your path and what inspires you along the way. Get to know yourself, your best qualities, and play to your strengths. And don't forget that any weaknesses that you may have can be worked on if you make a plan to improve them. Don't be afraid of challenges. They are opportunities for significant personal learning and growth. Always seek opportunities to further your education. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain by becoming a better person for yourself and your team. And also, lead by example. People are always paying attention. How you carry yourself and treat others speaks volumes about you and your character.
Great handover, Gerard. We also want to thank our Care Heroes for listening, and don't forget to rate our podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you want a shout out on a future episode, just visit careheropodcast.com. Go to the Contact Us page and submit your name, role, and location for a shout out on a future episode.
That's right, Martin. Now it's time for some shout outs. We want to give a shout out to David, a physician from Ottawa, Canada. Jessica, an occupational therapist from New York, New York. And Kim, a care aide from Vancouver, Canada.
All right, Care Heroes, thanks for joining us on another episode. We'll be back next time, same Care Hero time, same Care Hero channel.
Thanks for listening to Care Hero Podcast. Don't miss out on future content. Hit subscribe and rate us in your favorite podcast app. Also, remember to visit us at careheropodcast.com to send us your feedback, sign up for the newsletter, and nominate a Care Hero to be interviewed on a future episode.